All right, y'all, we out here in Hillcrest. I want to come down here and show y'all what's taking place. Like you see, you got the refineries right there. That's Citgo. See all the pollution coming up. Just wants to thrive in black community, man.
Washington Coles was essentially the first African-American enclave in Corpus Christi. Once that was becoming overcrowded and very substandard, dilapidated housing was happening, Housing Authority recommended the Hillcrest census tract, the city of Corpus Christi, to open up. Prior to that, they were being kind of priced out of that neighborhood, and that's kind of the way that they kept African Americans out of this neighborhood, just by having a certain lot size or house size. The current Harbor Bridge is located east of the Washington Coles neighborhood and Hillcrest, and just skirts the edge of these neighborhoods right now. And what Texas Department of Transportation wants to do is relocate the Harbor Bridge. The new relocation will go directly through Washington Coles neighborhood, and essentially will split Washington Coles in two, and the western half of Washington Coles and all of Hillcrest will now be totally isolated from the rest of Corpus Christi.
You think, well, yeah, it's just a straight shot. I mean, that makes a lot of engineering sense. The problem is what they're doing to the neighborhood, you know? But hey, wait a minute, there are people living under that bridge, you know? There are people that whose lives you're going to destroy.
I was born and raised here in this area. I have 2 children. My husband, he was born, raised in this neighborhood. It's like my lifeline. And I have a lot of pride in this neighborhood. A lot of people always call me the family members of the mayor, Hillcrest, because I'm always wanting to know what's going on.
Well, I've lived here 33 years. My kids grew up here. My grandkids are here, you know, so we've been here a while. It hasn't gotten any better, but, you know, we're in a position where we have to be here. We can't leave. There's no way we could. I don't want to start over. Let's put it that way. I don't want to go in debt again.
It's just amazing, some of the stuff that we see go on here. First of all, we were attacked with our elementary school. It was taken out. The neglect from the police department.
It's a lot of lack of city attention, and there are abandonments.
When they gave up the rec center, the only rec center in this area, as far as the kids, they don't have anywhere else to go.
The houses that were torn down, they were going to do infill building and low-income housing in order for people to buy back and move back into the area, help individuals who needed help with loans for repairs for their houses. And they were going to put in parks, you name it. They told us that's what was going to happen. None of that never came about.
It's the city, it's the institution of the city that has discriminated against the residents of Hillcrest and Washington Coles. It's institutional discrimination.
Over time, especially in the 1940s, there was a lot of redlining and housing segregation that these neighborhoods were having to deal with. People wouldn't sell to African Americans elsewhere in the city.
During the segregation of redlining, you couldn't go too far. You know, those were the quarantine areas where you could live in Corpus Christi if you were black, all right? And at that time, my neighbor was a tank, all right? It was the tank farm. I could cross the street, I could throw rocks and hit the tank. And I didn't have a good arm as a kid, you know, so that's how close the tanks were for me.
As soon as Corpus Christi established zoning, they did not grant the Washington Coles with like a single-family residential kind of status. Washington Coles had a lot of light industrial and heavy industrial mixed into their neighborhood, and it was just very piecemeal kind of zoning. And then the freeway happened, completely just wrapping around the Hillcrest and Washington Coles neighborhoods.
They built the wastewater treatment plant there, right in the middle of the African American neighborhood. And more importantly, the refineries had already started up.
What moved into this area first was the neighborhoods or the industry. The neighborhoods were there long before heavy industrial sites moved into this area. So all 5 of the largest emitters are in the industrial district that is right next to Hillcrest and Washington Coles.
The refineries is the definite presence you can't miss. Started off with one burner and then another burner, and pretty soon the whole skyline is lined with the flares, the stacks.
It's like the refinery right down, about 3 blocks down. My wife's grandmother died of cancer. She lived here before we did. Wife's mother is very ill right now. My wife is very ill right now.
My son, born with asthma, had a brother who was diagnosed with lung cancer, passed away at 38. And if I get out in my yard and dig too much with no gloves on, I know the effects of it later on.
We know we're getting sick. We know the people are sick. We know why they're sick, but you can't get what your property is worth. You know what I'm saying? It's impossible. You won't make enough money to move anywhere else.
The city did nothing about it, okay? The industries did nothing about it. And there's no telling how much more pollution is going to come in with the Harbor Bridge.
Who can fight the city? Who can fight the state? Who can fight the port? And of course the refineries. These are the biggest money-making things in this city. We have no means.
Sometimes it requires intervention by law enforcement for them to obey their own rules.
It seems as though the city only pays attention to the federal government. In 1992, the city council said, we're going to tear down that wastewater treatment plant because it was 50 years old and it smelled like the dickens. And everyone complained about it. All of a sudden, they decided to do something about the plant, but they abandoned and didn't even consider the original idea of just tearing it down and sending all the wastewater out. They wanted to tear down a plant that was that was established in an African American community and move it to another African American neighborhood. Okay, that's when we filed a Title VI complaint, and that's when all of those plans were abandoned.
So the current case is a Title VI civil rights complaint that we filed on behalf of individuals in the neighborhood and the Citizens Alliance. Any agency that receives federal funds has to comply with the Civil Rights Act. This is exactly the type of neighborhood that we're talking about, that you're supposed to actually put more effort into not having more impacts in a neighborhood that's already had a history of air pollution, hazardous waste, exactly this neighborhood, minority low-income neighborhood. You're not supposed to add additional burdens to this already disproportionately burdened neighborhood. There are still a sizable number of people living in this area. In Hillcrest alone, there are about 500 households, and all of those households are going to be isolated by this new bridge and feel its impacts. So we really feel like this bridge is kind of the last straw.
No one asked, well, what about the neighborhood? What's the impact on the neighborhood? What they did say was build us a pretty bridge.
Oh, it's going to further separate the neighborhood from the rest of the city. It's going to put you out on an island.
The city of Corpus Christi should care about what's going on over here. I mean, we're not included in anything.
Really, the question is, what are they going to do about what they've already done to the neighborhood?
They can pull federal funds. They can absolutely say you can't build along this route that you want to build along, or you can build along it as long as it's mitigated.
Do we want to leave? Would we like to leave as a whole neighborhood? Relocate the whole neighborhood? Not just bits and pieces, pulling out, this person is gone this day, they just sold their house. Just let us know as a whole, this is what we're going to do. Be honest with us. This is how it's going to impact you if you stay here. Be honest.